Hello and welcome back to another video in the series of Terraform and Azure. Before we get started, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, and if you do like the video, hit that like button. It really does help me if you do. So where are we so far? So far in the series we've built our virtual network, subnets, NSGs, the public IPs. We've created these storage containers to store our build scripts and our diagnostics. We've configured additional disks. Well, we've created disks and presented them to the server. We haven't yet configured them. So yeah, in this video, we're going to do some guest customization. So what that means is once these machines are built, it's going to run, in this case, Powershell commands. That's going to go off and configure the guest to how we want. So for example, the SQL server is going to configure these disks from raw to actually usable data. The management box will probably just create a folder to store our management scripts. And on the web server, obviously, we're going to install and configure IIS to make it a web server, and we'll deploy a website, just a basic website. So yeah, that's it. Let's get over to our client machine and get started. Okay, so this is where we left off. Let's just quickly have a look at the portal and see what we've got going on. So yeah, we've got our resource group for our project, and we've got a few servers. And if we have a look at the first server, so the management server, and go down to extensions, notice we've got nothing there. So the way we're gonna configure the guest customization in this particular solution is we're going to use Microsoft's custom script extension, which allows us to run basically the VM will copy the script file down from a storage somewhere and then run it. It's as simple as that. So let's have a quick look at what that's all about. So Azure custom script extension. So let's have a look. That's what Microsoft have to say about it. So yeah, so the script that we want to run needs to be in Azure Blob storage. What other useful information do we need to know? Here's some examples here. So it needs a file URI. In this case, that's obviously the demo. We're going to copy it up to our own storage, and then a command to run. So PowerShell, and then the script and some other information. So we'll keep that page open for the moment. If we go back, if you remember in a previous video, we did already create a storage account called guest for our guest customization. And in there, we did already create a folder called scripts, which is obviously empty at the moment. So I think the first thing we need to do is just populate this with some files. So let's head over to our guest machine, sorry, our VS Code. So let's create a folder called, what should we call it? Build scripts. And in there, let's create 3 files, one for each of our servers, and we're given the same names as our server name. So man01.ps1. For those that don't know, PS1 is the file extension for PowerShell. Let's create another one for SQL01.ps1 and one for web01.ps1. So these are going to be the scripts that we're going to copy up to the blob storage, and then this is what our guest customization script's going to use, extension is going to use to pull down to the guest on provision and actually run. So we've got our build scripts. Just give them some information. So I don't know, initial build. Initial build. That's not how you spell initial, but I don't care. It can stay like that, and we'll just put that in each script. Right, so we've got 3 scripts, not doing anything at the moment, just a comment in there. Right, so we need to copy these up to our blob storage. So let's go back to our main. So we know we've already got a storage account here, and it was created one called guest. So remember, go back to our variables. There should be storage accounts up here. There we go. There's one called guest. And we've also created a container called scripts in the guest storage account. So we've got all the information we need. So let's head over to terraform.io and see how we create a blob. Terraform.io, registry, browse providers, Azure. I really should bookmark this, documents. So we need to create a blob. So that's search for blob. Resources, Sure Storage Blob. I think that's probably the one. So what do we, where's the example? Okay, storage account name. Oh, yeah, where's the, oh, I'm looking at resources. So we need to look at this one. That's where I was getting it wrong. I was looking at the data, not the resource. Okay, so this is how you create a blob. So it needs a name of the blob, storage account, a container, type of blob, and obviously the source file. So let's just grab that and put it in our code. So let's go down to the bottom of our main.tf. Okay, we don't want to call it that, so let's call it scripts. Right, so we want to name, well, we know what storage account it's going into, don't we? So let's fix that. So we want to put it into storage account SA is it SA guest? Did we have a guest? Right, so we want to put it in storage account. Yeah, it is guest, isn't it? I think that's what we called it. So if we go back to our variables, yeah, it's called guest. And our storage container name is storage container guest dot name. Storage container guest dot name. So we've got that sorted out. So we know where we're going to place these scripts. We want it to be type block. That's fine. And we need a source, and we obviously need a name. Now, we got a script for each server. So we already have a variable for servers, don't we? So we can loop through that. Yeah, so we got one for man, Web01, all the same names. So let's use that variable to create our for each. So for each bar service, again, if you don't know what I'm doing, go back and watch previous videos where I've covered this technique in depth. I don't really want to go through it again in this video, but go back, watch previous ones. I've covered all this if this doesn't make sense. So for the name, so again, it's just going to iterate through that list of servers, and then we're going to create a blob for it all. So the name of our blob is going to be literally the name of the script. So let's do each.key. I've forgotten the $. Each.key.ps1. So what that's going to do, it's going to iterate through that server list, grab these key values, so Web01, Man01, etc. And then it's going to create a name based on that key with .ps1 extension. So effectively it's going to map these. So it's going to basically come up with these names. So that's fine. And the source of the files, well, we've put them into a folder, haven't we? So the folder is build scripts. I think we can just do this, build_scripts. And we want to obviously copy each one of these up. So it's going to be basically that, isn't it? So it's going to, for each server, it's going to look for that. It's going to create an object name of the server name. In this case, the server name and then .ps1. So it matches the scripts. And it's going to copy the file that's located in this folder up to that blob. So it matches. So let's just see if we've got that right. I think so. Let's see. Let's do a Terraform plan. Okay, that completed without any errors. So let's apply that. Okay, so got an error there, and it's probably a simple spelling mistake in my part somewhere. Open build, cannot find the specified file. So what have I done wrong here? Build scripts. Container, can't open in file, cannot find the specified file. what's happened here. I've put it under the Terraform folder, not under the root project. So I'm just going to move that to, let's move that to the correct level. Yeah, so it's now in the right place. Yeah, I had it in a folder too high. So let's apply that again. Okay, it says it's completed successfully. It's all green. So let's head over to our storage account and have a look. Do a refresh. Here we go. We've got our scripts uploaded to our storage account, ready for our guests to consume. Okay, so up next we need to actually get our VMs. We need to create an extension, the actual custom script extension. So let's have a look how we do that. Extension. I obviously cannot spell. Right, so there's a virtual machine extension. So let's have a look and see what's involved in this. So yeah, this is the thing that's doing the work. So let's take that block and put it on our code, and let's modify it to suit us. So obviously we don't want to call it example, so let's call it extension. So it needs a host name for the extension to install onto, obviously a virtual machine name ID, sorry, virtual machine ID. Obviously a publisher, we're going to use Microsoft Azure extension, and we are using a custom script extension, so we don't need to change that. And the type calendar is 2. So we've got some settings to run in here. So here it's looking for the command to execute, and then obviously we don't want tags for the moment. Right, so let's update this to match our thing. So let's use the for each again for each server, each var in server, because obviously we want to run a custom script on each server. And let's give the name initial build. So this is going to be the name of the extension that we'll see if we quickly navigate back to one of our servers. Extensions, where is it? There we go. So if you were to add one manually, you'd have to give it a name. That's what will appear in there. So it can be the same on all servers. We're not too bothered. So the virtual machine ID. So we've already got our array of machines being built somewhere up here. So yeah, virtual machine servers. So we can use that information. So it's virtual machine servers and something .id. So what is this something? Now obviously because we've got the key, so we should just be able to put in there each .key. So as it iterates through this list of servers, it's going to get the machine ID for that particular server it's passing at the time. So man01 ID, SQL01 ID, etc. So we're good there. Now in settings, obviously this isn't enough. The example doesn't provide us enough information to actually run the script. If you remember, let's go back and have a look at the Microsoft documentation for it. So there's a file URL. So it needs these two commands in there. So let's replace these with that. Okay. So file. What is our file URI? Well, we know what the storage is now, don't we? It's the storage account and that container. So if we have a look, so blobstorage.net, then our container, and then our script. So we need to replace this value with something meaningful to us. So let's get rid of that and let's have a go at doing that. So it's going to be Azure rm underscore storage underscore account dot SA, I think it was it SA? So our storage accounts are in, yeah, SA. And obviously we want to grab the dot name but we need to obviously specify the guest account. So the name, yeah, and then blob storage, windows.net. That's going to be the same for all blob storage. That's not something you customize or need to care about. So the key thing is our storage account name. And now we need the container. Well, we know what the container is. It's called scripts. But just in case it was called something else, let's do this properly. Let's call it from the code. So if someone changes it later, it doesn't break. So it's Azure RM storage container guest name. So that should be, if we look at our container that we created early on, yeah, so it's going to be storage container guest name. So this container here. So let's just make sure I did spell that right, because you've seen my videos long enough now to know my typing and spelling is horrendous. So let's just paste that in there, just make sure I spell it right, which it looks like I have, guest.name. And obviously now we've got a name for the script. So we've already know what the scripts are. It's basically each.key.ps1. So we should just be able to put that there. And then the commands to execute is obviously going to be, but we need to play, I think we need to provide a little bit more here. So we've got our path to our file, command to execute. So from experience, I always like to put execution policy unrestricted, just to stop any errors. If those of you know PowerShell, you'll probably come across this a few times. Policy unrestricted. This just stops any of the warning pop-ups. Obviously, because we want to do this we want to do this without interacting. So yeah, we need to make sure that any pop-ups don't happen. I think I spelled that right. And then obviously we need to give it a file name of the script that we want to run. In this case, it will be the file. So it's going to run PowerShell.exe with execution policy unrestricted, and the file it's going to run is our file from this location called each key ps1, which is the name of our scripts. So you're probably wondering why we're not just running this. Well, this value here literally downloads the file and places it in a location on the virtual machine, and then this command runs that script from that location. There's another parameter I want to add as well. What's it called? Timestamp, I think. Yeah, so I'll explain this when we need to use it, but right now just know that it's very useful to set, because it means that you can modify the scripts later and change the version number and it will rerun. Otherwise it's only ever going to run once on a VM. Obviously we want to be able to change that value, so let's go back to our variables and have a look at our VMs. Let's create another key value pair and call it script version. And we'll just give it a value of 1 to start with. And then what I mean is, when you do the DevOps thing, if you want to modify one of these scripts to add, I don't know, an additional disk or to do some additional customization, all you need to do is update the script itself and then change this version number on the particular object. And then the next time you do a Terraform apply command or use a DevOps pipeline, it's going to identify that the script version is different from what it currently run, and it's going to rerun it. So it's a way to get this to work. So obviously each server needs to have that value. So if we go back over to our main, so in here, we're just going to give that simply the value of what we just specified. So value, oh, I forgot what it was already. What did we call it? Script version. So let's grab that. Script version. I think that's it. So at the moment, the virtual machine is going to configure an extension. It's going to download the file from this place. It's going to run this, and it's going to give it a timestamp. But right now, this machine doesn't have access to that storage account. So at the moment it's going to fail because we haven't set up any identity at all for this VM. So we're going to need to tell it what credentials to use to connect to this storage account. Now there's another settings. We could add it in there, but I think if we go and have a look at the Azure virtual machine, I think there's a protected settings block. So this is where we would store the private keys, which we're going to need to use to connect up. So let's add that section. So let's just copy that for the moment and we'll modify it. So let's create this one as protected. And obviously we need protected. I'm not sure if it's case sensitive, but just in case. And obviously we want that same name there, protected settings. So we've now got a block we can do secure transfers in. So we need to give it a storage account name of something, and we also need to give it a storage account key, and obviously that needs to be something useful as well. So storage account name, well, we know what storage account name is because we can grab it from same here. So that is the same storage account. So let's grab that. No, we don't need the whole lot, just this bit. And let's not forget to end the line. So storage account is guest, and the account key, we should be able to use the same account, but we should be able to get the, I think it's a primary access key value on there. So yeah, so it's going to basically look up at this object once it's created, grab the name for the guest and grab the primary account key for the guest. So that should allow the virtual machine to actually install the extension, download the file with these keys and execute the file and version it. Should we see if it works? Let's have a look. So let's do a Terraform plan. Okay, we've got an error somewhere. Resource, virtual machine extension, reference type, at least one attribute. Virtual machine servers has not been declared. What have I done wrong? Virtual machine ID, each key. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, okay. Because we've copied it from the example, it's looking for Azure virtual machine servers, but I'm pretty sure we use the Azure Windows virtual machine. So the example wasn't using the same setup as us. So let's just replace that with Azure RM. Did I copy that properly? Where's the virtual machines gone? Yes, Azure RM Windows virtual machine. Yeah, and we've only got Azure virtual machine, so let's replace that. Okay, so everything else looks okay. Let's try that again. So let's do another plan. Okay, another issue. I can see that I've typed, I forgot to put the quotes in on the script extension value. If you remember, when you use the for each value, you have to then tell it what key to look for within that value. So let's try again. Okay, we have success. So let's apply this. Okay, so that's finally finished. It's obviously added 3 resources, in our case our custom script extensions. So let's head over to the Azure portal and take a look. So let's have a look at the management one first. So our management server extension, and there's our initial build, and its provision succeeded. So let's jump onto that server and have a look and see what it's done. So what's the IP address of that? Okay, let's head over to that. So username was admin user. Can't remember the password, so let's head back over to our variables and just grab it out of our list. Okay. So obviously we're not expecting to have done anything yet because we didn't actually put anything in the script to run, but let's just have a quick walkthrough of what the guest customization has actually done with that file. So obviously this is the first time we logged onto the server since we tore it down. So it's going to take a few seconds just to warm up and go through its first log on. So there we go. So let's have a look at File Explorer. So when you install a custom script extension, what Azure does is it obviously installs an agent or an extension in this case. And then it will create this thing called package. And if we drill down, you'll see, hopefully, so the custom script extension, the version, and then we'll download. So in here, that's the first one that's downloaded. So there's our script. Obviously it's empty at the moment. But yeah, so then it would run that, but in this case it ran it, but there was nothing in the script to actually do anything. So it's not actually performed any customization. So let's do that now. So as it's a management box, I want all our engineers that log onto this to have a folder created for them called management. So this is a nice simple one. So let's get that script to actually create. Let's go back to our code. So man01, so in this PowerShell script, we want to create a folder. So simple, just do for those that don't know PowerShell, leave a comment. I'm happy to do a video series in PowerShell as well, but this isn't a PowerShell video, so just bear with me, or I'll try and explain as I go. With PowerShell, if you want to create a new item, it is new item. I don't seem to have the right plugin, so I'm going to have to type it without any, and obviously give it a path. And in this case, we're going to give it C management. I really cannot type management. And obviously we need to give it a item type, and it's going to be a directory. So it's going to create a new item. I don't know why it didn't do that. The path is going to be C management, and it's going to be of type directory. What's it complaining about here? Directory. How odd. It was fine. It was just complaining, so I've just reopened it and it's fine. Right, okay, so we've now, if we run this, so a couple of things we need to do before we can actually do that. Obviously we need to, on our management box, we need to update the version to 2, otherwise it's not going to run. And another thing we need to do, because the blob already exists, so we just need to delete it from our storage. Obviously you can build logic into this using MD5 hashes to make sure it's valid, but for the sake of this demo, let's just delete the file from our blob storage so it uploads it again. So let's delete the man01. Let's delete that. So now if we do Terraform plan and Terraform apply, hopefully it should be identifying that as a new version to apply, and it's going to copy up the new script file, this one, up to that blob storage and have the virtual machine guest custom script extension actually run it. So the end result is we should end up with a folder called C management on our management box. Okay, so that has finished. So let's head over to our virtual machine, and there we go. We've got our C management folder already created for us. So that's how you do customization using PowerShell with the custom script extension. Now, obviously, we need to do a lot more because we've got to do the SQL. In this case, we're going to do the disks. So let's jump onto that box now and just have a quick look and see how we're going to do that. So what was the IP address of the SQL server? It is 10424. So from my management box, let's jump on there and have a look. Ten 424, or was it 10.2? I think that was right. Admin user and the password. I'm not going to try and type it, so let's grab it again from our variables. So while that's logging in, if you remember, we did create some data disks in our code. So if we go back to main, this section here, so it's created some disks and it's associated them with the SQL server. So go back to watch the previous video and see how we did that. And obviously we've got a variable of disks somewhere. Yeah, here. So the idea is if you want to add more disks in the future, you just update these variables and it will loop through and add them. So what that's done is it's created the data disks and it's presented them to this server. So we'll see them in here. Yeah, so you've got the two data disks we've created, 5 gig and a 20 gig. But the operating system itself just hasn't used them yet. So if we were to go and have a look at computer management, this is the SQL server, by the way, and have a look in disks, it will say, hey, we've got some new disks. But obviously we don't want the engineer to have to log on and configure these. We want to do it through guest customization. So let's come out of that. You see the two disks there, 5 gig and 20 gig. So let's use PowerShell to do that. So how do we do that? Let's work out. So let's actually run PowerShell locally on this machine and then we'll use it in a script later. So let's work out what we need to run. All right, so in PowerShell, there's this concept called get disks. And you can actually use where statements. So let's get disks where object partition style is equal to raw. So that will hopefully find, I think we need to put it in quotes. Hopefully you guys can see this. It's a bit small text. Let's see if I can zoom in. There we go. So that command there should get all those disks that are in raw state. So those, it didn't actually find any. Partition style is equal to raw. It's partition style, not partition style. Let's try that again. There we go. So there's our two disks. So we can now use this value. So if we put that into a variable, so I don't know, data disks equals that. So if we now run that, again, this isn't a PowerShell course, but hopefully you can follow along. And there's our, so we've now got that stored in the variable. And we can use a for each now. So for each disk in data disks, we'll run these commands. So how do we do this? Obviously we want one disk to be for data and one for logs. So the first one we're going to have is data. So let's put a if statement in here. If disk dot number, because there's a number value down here, look. So if we do disk dot number is equal to 2. In fact, we want 3, don't we? No, two is going to be our logs, and 20 is going to be for our data. So if it's equal to 2, then set. Right, I'm not used to that. Right, so this number is equal to set label to logs. And let's copy that again. And if it's equal to 3, which will be the larger one, let's set it to data. Okay, so now we can use those labels later here. So we can now take the disk object and we can pipe it to initialize disk. And we can do a partition style of master boot record, which is a standard type, and pass through, and we can pipe that to, and because we're using pipe, we can actually continue on the next line. Pipe it to a new partition, and we can assign a driver letter to it, and we can use maximum size of what's available. Again, we can pipe to the next line, and we can actually then go on to format the volume, if I can spell that right. Format volume, and we're going to give it a file system of NTFS, and we're going to create a new file system label of the label we've specified, and we're going to add the confirm so that we don't have to interact with it, because obviously we want to automate this. If I can turn caps lock off, confirm, and we want that to be false. So we just want the PowerShell to run without prompting the user to say yes, go ahead. Okay, so let's walk through that again. So we're going to grab our list of disks, put it into a variable, the ones that are currently raw, so the ones that aren't assigned, and then we're going to go through each disk in that disk of array, and we're going to check the number, and if it's equal to 2, it's going to give the label logs, and if it's equal to 3, it's going to give it data. And then we're going to take that disk object, pipe it through to initialize disk of this type of partition, and we're going to create a new volume with a driver letter on there, and we're going to use the maximum size available, and we're going to format the disk with NTFS and give it the name of the label. Whew, that was a lot of to go through there. So again, this isn't a PowerShell course, but if you do want to learn a bit more PowerShell, just leave a comment below. I'm happy to do some courses in PowerShell as well, because it's quite interesting and it's very useful. So I think that's going to create our volume. So I guess the first thing we need to do is try it. If we try it now, though, it's going to configure the disks. So let's just comment this out for the moment. And let's just run this part without that and just see whether it gives us the right labels. We'll probably need to output the label as well temporarily. So let's run that, and it should, if we do a write host, it should tell us what label. It says it should be logs and data as it iterates through. Let's have a look. There you go, data and logs. So it's partly working, so our loop's working. Obviously, we don't really want to do the assign just yet, because we want Terraform to do that. Obviously, we don't know for sure whether it's going to work. So let's give it a go. So we'll take that, because we want Terraform to do it. So let's stick it in our Terraform script. So this is what we want to run. I can't see why that wouldn't work. So let's give it a go. So just to confirm, we never did actually configure the disk. Let's close that. So we still got, on the SQL server, we still only got the C and D. So once we run this, hopefully we'll see probably be G and F. Or it might be E and G, actually. No, because we've got a D drive there. So it'll be G and F, and it should be the right volume names of what we specified. Right, so let's have a look. So we need to obviously we need to update the script version on the SQL server to version 2. so that it runs it, and we obviously need to delete, because we haven't built any logic into our scripting yet to check to see whether the version's changed. So we're actually going to delete the file from here to make sure that it does actually get uploaded. Okay, so fingers crossed if we do a plan. Okay, no errors, so let's now apply that and see what we get. Okay, it claims it's finished, so let's head over and see whether it's sorted our issue. So we refresh this. Do we get our disks? We haven't got any disks yet. So what happened? Let's have a look, see whether they did actually try and run. What we're doing, go to computer management, disk management. Well, they're there, not configured, so something went wrong with our script. So let's close that down. Let's do some troubleshooting. So let's see whether it did actually download the latest package. So plugins, downloads. So it has created a new one. Let's have a look at that script. Well, it's what we wanted it to run, but it didn't run. So, or it did run, but it didn't actually work. So let's have a look. So let's run that line and see whether we've got something wrong with our code. So let's have a look at what that value is. Data disks. 3 and 2. Very odd. All right, let's run it manually then and see what we get. See if we get any errors. So let's run the whole script and see what we get. Got some problems here. Confirm. Okay, I see the problem. It should be $false. So let's start again. So let's close this down and go back to us and put the correct parameter there. It should be $false, not just false. Okay, so let's go back to our storage and refresh that. Delete the SQL one again. And let's go back to our code and update the variables to run version 3 of our script now. And do another Terraform plan. Okay, let's apply that and see if we get any more problems. Okay, it's finished. Let's head over to our SQL server and yeah, it looks like it's worked because we've got that screen up. So there should be some drives now. There we go. It's configured our drives automatically for us. So we now need to do the web server. Now, because that one's a little bit more in depth, we need to install IIS, configure some services. And obviously we made a mistake with the SQL one. We didn't really know it until we ran it manually. So I think what we'll do this time is we'll jump onto the web server. We'll work out what our script needs to do. We'll run the script without using Terraform, and then we'll take that script, stick it into our Terraform script, and then we'll destroy the whole environment and rerun it and have it all fully automated end to end. So let's try that. So let's jump onto, minimize the web server. So let's now jump onto the web server, which was the IP address of our web server. 414. So let's jump on there. 10.4.1.4. That's not 141. 144. As admin user. And let's grab the password again. So it was in our variables here. Okay, so we're now logging into our management server. Oh, sorry, our web server via our management server. So this should just be a standard Windows. It doesn't have any additional disks. It doesn't have SQL installed. It's just a standard out of the box vanilla version of Windows. As you can see at the moment, it doesn't have any roles installed. Obviously we could go through and install iOS manually by going into add remove features. So we could go through this wizard and we could go down and select this one, but we're not going to do that obviously because we want it to be fully automated end to end. So first thing is, let's get PowerShell open and work out what our script's going to look like. Let's change the view. Hopefully, let's zoom in a little bit so you guys can see it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a variable for our website. So IIS site, and we're going to make that equal, and our site's going to be called RPG Labs. So we've got our name of our site set up. Obviously, we're going to want to install the role. So in PowerShell, there's a module for install Windows feature, commandlet, and we can specify the name, and name in this case is going to be web server, and we want to include all the management tools as well. So let's just run that to start with. So it's going to go off and install the management tools. It's going to take a while, so I'll pause you and bring you back when it's finished. Okay, so that's finished. So let's have a look and see. We should now have, if I refresh this page, we should now have iOS installed on this server. There we go. And if we have a look at the management of that, it should just be all the defaults. So we've got the website, they've got default website, and it's currently on port 80. And if we were to browse this, it should just launch the default information services page, which it has done. There we go. So a couple of things what we need to do on the next in our script is, obviously we don't want this default website used. We want to create our own, and first thing we're going to need to do is remove port 80 off this because we want to assign it to our other site. So let's go back to our script and let's remove the port 80 from the default site so we can use it elsewhere. So get website, name, and we're going to have to how's the best way of doing this? I don't know whether it would just accept the default website. Let's have a look. Default web site, that might work. And then we'll pipe it to get bindings, get web bindings, get web bindings. I'm sure that's a valid command. There we go. So let's see what that gives us, if anything. Yeah, so it's picked up our port 80 on that default, so it has worked. Let's give it a protocol of HTTP. Port 80. And we actually want to remove it. So we should be able to pipe it to remove web bindings. There we go. So if we run that, it should remove that port off that default website. Let's see. It looks like it has. So if we go into here and go into bindings, no longer. So we can now use port 80 on our website we're going to create. So we need to create that now. So we're going to create, first we're going to create a folder to store it. So let's create a new item. Item type, it's going to be a directory. The path is going to be, so at the moment iOS has a default location, so we'll just stick to that, which is C inet pub. Yeah, let's stick it in here. Yeah. So we'll stick it in here. inet pub, messed up there. Let's get rid of that. But we also want to create a folder called our site name. So let's give it our variable of IIS or whatever it's called. It's this one here. But it's not liking it. Path C, inet pub. Don't know why. Alright, let's leave it like that and see what happens. Name. I'm not sure if that's right. Let's have a look. Is that going to error? Oh no, it did create it. It's just not doing the IntelliSense. Okay, that's fine. So we've now got our folder. So we should now have our folder in here. There we go. That's going to be our root folder for our website. So now we just need to create well, in order to launch a website, as you know, you probably need some kind of file in there, some HTML file. So let's just create a random file. So new item again, and this time it's going to be item type file, and the path is going to be pretty much this again. So we want to place it in that folder, and we're going to give it a name of default.html, because IIS will look for that by default. Obviously you can call it whatever you like, but rather than messing around with configuring too much of IIS, let's keep it to the same name, and let's give it a value. This is the contents of the file effectively, so let's just give it something really simple. H2 is it /H2, isn't it? H2. So we're basically going to create a file with some HTML markup in there that's simply going to be our test website. Okay, so let's create that file. It's created it. Let's just quickly check. There's our HTML file. So now we need to actually create the site. So that's quite easy as well. New IIS site, and the name is obviously going to be our variable we've already declared. So in this case, RPG Labs, and the binding information, we're going to put it onto, what's the format for this? We actually did have it up here, didn't we? So it's basically that. So let's copy that out. Stick it in there. So we want anything, any IP address on port 80 to go to this site. There's no spaces there, is there? No. And obviously we want it to be on the physical path. What's going on with my keyboard? Physical path, and we know where the physical path is. It's here. Okay, so if we run that line, it should throw an error. Here we go. What have we got wrong here? I must have clicked the keyboard wrong, so let's run that again. So now it's created our new site. So if we go into here and do a refresh, there we go, there's our new site. And it should be on port 80. And if we were to browse it, it should be our new... Is it going to browse? Yeah, there you go, our test website. Okay, so we've got our automation for that. Let's grab that, put it in our code for our web server. Now, obviously, we've already run this because we ran it manually, so it's not going to run again. So I think the best thing we can do is if we just destroy all our infrastructure and start again. And hopefully it will be an end-to-end build to what we got so far. So let's destroy that. Okay, it's finished destroying all our infrastructure. So let's head back over to the portal and just make sure it's all gone. So our resource group's empty, and if we were to go to resource groups and do a refresh, we should see that it's not there. Okay, so we've got a blank canvas again. So let's just clear the screen. Let's close some of these windows because we've got quite a lot open. In fact, let's close them all. So we've got our Terraform code, nothing deployed. Let's do a Terraform plan. Just to make sure we captured everything new. Okay, so let's run the Terraform plan. Sorry, Terraform apply. So what they should do is should build everything from scratch, do all the resource group, networks, the virtual machines, storage, copy up the scripts, run the scripts locally on the guest. So yeah, it's going to take a while because obviously it's quite a bit we need to do. So I'm going to pause you here. I'm going to go and grab myself a coffee, and once it's done, I'll bring you back. Okay, it's finished. I'm full of caffeine. Let's check it out and see whether it's actually worked. So first thing is, let's review. It says create 33 resources. Let's head over to our portal, refresh. So there's our dev account, resource group, and all our stuff looks like it's created. So let's jump onto the management box and have a look at the extensions. Provisions exceeded, which is good. Let's grab the IP address. 10.4. Oh, sorry, no, it's this one, isn't it? Let's jump on that box. And the password. I'm not trying to type it, so let's grab that. Where's the dialog box gone? There we go. Don't know why it's complaining there. Let's try again. There we go, that's better. So this one, the guest customization should have that single folder called management on the C drive. So fingers crossed we see that. So let's have a look. File Explorer. These first launch windows are a bit annoying. So we got C management. So our management box guest customization worked. So let's jump onto our SQL server. So what's the IP address of that? And remember, this one should have the disks configured. So that is 424. So from our management box, let's jump onto that. 10.424. It's up and running. So user admin, or is it admin user? Admin user. Is the password still in the clipboard? Yep. Let's have a look. Come on. Let's have a look at Disk Explorer, File Explorer, sorry. And we should end up with additional drives, hopefully. Let's close these down. Right. There we go. We've got a logs drive, but not the other one for some reason. I think that might have been the logic problem with our script, but I'm not too worried. I'm not going to go through it again, but I think there was something wrong with our script, basically. It's probably come up with a different number. If you remember, when we did the code, we chose 2 and 3. Let's have a look, see if we can see that. What's going on? Packages, plugins. Yeah, so I think we got the logic wrong in our code. So if we look at the script itself, I would imagine there wasn't a disk on 2 or 3. So let's just quickly check that. So if we look at the contents of that now. Oh. Data disks. Oh, it's got a 3. I'm not sure why that did run then. Well, it's going to run now and it's going to fix our problem, but I need to look into that and find out why it didn't fully complete. Obviously it started to, but I'm not going to worry myself with it right now. We're going to assume that worked successfully. But yeah, in production, you would write better scripts. You put some error check in and log in your scripts. But obviously, for what we're trying to demonstrate here of using custom script extensions, then it's good enough. So let's look at that one. And then obviously the last one we want to look at is the web server. So what was the web server's IP address now? 414. So let's jump onto that box. (10.141). I've got that wrong. 414. 414. Admin user and the password. So this one should be pre-configured with RIS. The default website should have its bindings removed, and we should have a new folder and file for our website, and it should be attached to RIS. So fingers crossed. It's done what we wanted. Again, didn't put any error checking into the Powershell script, so there's always a risk that, well, it's installed RIS anyway. That's a good start. So if we go and have a look at the tools, we should see our sites, and there's our site. It should be on port 80, which it is. And if we browse it, it should be our custom website. There we go, our test website. Excuse me. So yeah, so that's all worked. Ignore the errors of the SQL disks. We'll fix that at another time. So for now, obviously the resources we've built are costing me money, so I'm just going to destroy them now, because we're not going to use them until the next video. So while that Terraform destroy, try again. So while that's doing its thing, what we're going to do in the next video. So let's bring up the whiteboard again, the slides, sorry. Right, so we've done quite a bit so far in this video series. We've managed to create our resource group, our virtual network, all our subnets, the NSGs, all the server infrastructure, the custom disks, the guest customization in this video. So we've now got the environment pretty much done. The only thing that's lacking at the moment is our user access. So our users currently have no access to our environment. At the moment, only admins do through the jump box. So in the next video, we should crack on and create our web application firewall, and all the components that are associated with that. In order to do that, we're going to need to set up a managed service identity so that this entity can go to a key vault and grab certificates and secrets. So yeah, so I hope you did find this video useful. If you did, please make sure you do hit that like button, and not to miss the next one, make sure you hit that subscribe button. So until the next video, take care, guys.